Hey, welcome to Integrative Preparedness. I'm Steve Smith. Hope you all are having a great day. We finished with our over the weekend big festival down in Mound City, Kansas. We were down. Kelly had her soap booth set up down in at the Sugar Mound Festival down there. It's great. It's a big arts and crafts and that kind of thing festival they do down there, and it was a great weekend. Glad to have so many of you join us for the last two videos that Hallie and I shot. Couple of answers there. With so many of you have obviously have background in the medical field and can verify what we had talked about. You knew what we were getting at, and added a lot of your own opinions and content, which just further goes to support my claim that this channel has the smartest commenters in YouTube land. So thank you all for your comments. Couple of things. Yes, Hallie will be back, and I am trying to talk her into starting her own channel, and I think I've just about got it done. So we're talking about shooting a few for her and doing an introduction for her and getting a few up. And she is a sharp person, and she has a lot to say, and I look forward to her channel when we get it up. A lot of you asked great questions in addition to adding information of your own. We'll be addressing all of that in the future. And by the way, welcome to everybody, all the new people, all the new subscribers here and over on Patreon. It's really rewarding to see how much this channel is growing, much more than I ever anticipated. So it's great to have you all here. And I'll tell you what, I want to compliment before I get to the subject of this. I want to compliment all of the commenters who, and we touched up against the edge of some kind of dicey subjects here in the last couple videos, and everyone was able to say their piece and share their information without going over the line, which allowed all the comments to stay on, which I like, because I hate cutting out comments that go a little bit too far, that otherwise carry a lot of good information. So that was great. Everybody's really getting used to that. I was going to talk a little bit about China today, and I'll tell you a little something before I get into the main subject here of the healthcare con, and that's what it is. It's a con. We went out to our supplier today. As many of you know, I have a Christmas light business, and now we're starting our busy time of season, and I wanted to touch base with my supplier to make sure that we were going to get what we ordered, because everything comes from China, and wanted to make sure they had stock, and I fully expected them not to. So I wanted to see what I was dealing with, because I expect this year to be a big year. We went out there, and surprisingly, because they're smart, they already pre-ordered a lot. They got a lot in. And something very interesting on how they run their business right, and other people could learn something from this. They pre-ordered a lot when they saw that there might be problems coming with deliveries out of China, and the owner told us that she had absorbed the additional expenses of shipping from China. First, there were some challenges with getting product, but she was able to. But she was absorbing the increased costs herself. Now, this is amazing. Herself, so that she wasn't going to pass on increased costs to the jobbers, those of us who buy from her. Therefore, we don't have to pass on increased costs to our customers. Now, the way that she did that was that she just pulled back on her advertising and marketing. And how was she able to do that? Because she has established a good business, just like we have, that we don't have to advertise, we don't have to market. When you do good work and you do a good job for people, they know and they spread the word. And pretty much, as I've said before, we've always had to turn away business every year. Hopefully, because I'll be leaving my corporate job, I won't have to turn away any this year. But she did say that because of the information she had just gotten from China and her suppliers from over there, that China has implemented a 3-day work week. Some of you may be familiar with this because of their energy problems, and I may be doing a separate one on China, and is China starting to tank? And I think they very well could be. But anyway, because of their so-called energy problems, they have reduced work weeks to 3 days a week. So those factories over there are sitting idle for 4 days a week. Now they say that it's energy. I don't believe that it's entirely that. I think that a lot of it is a reduction of the need for their supply. I think that people have gotten sick. A lot of people don't want to deal with China. We've gotten all these container ships setting offshore out there, full of Chinese merchandise that aren't being offloaded. So we don't even have those here yet. And for them to continue to produce stuff that they're not sure when or if they're going to be able to sell, I think that's part of what's the reason for the reduction of their work week to 3 days. Anyway, but her cost in containers alone has gone from $5,000 to $27,000 per container rental for the things that she brings over from China. So that is an excellent. I wanted to give her kudos for that. And this is the way that good companies take care of things. She's gonna take that bite herself and reduce things from her end, knowing that that's going to allow people to continue to buy from her at good prices, and they will. Same thing with us, by keeping our prices down, by not raising them, and we always hate to raise prices. We know we're going to be able to keep all of our business and probably get more business. Well, assuredly get more business this year. Okay, anyway, back to the con that is healthcare. We've the last two that Hallie and I did, that I just put up yesterday and the day before, were about what's happening in healthcare. We're seeing so many of the top level people leave, and the effect that that's having on the health delivery system. What kind of healthcare are people getting? Well, I want to take it back a little bit, and I want to ask you exactly what kind of health care do you need? Now, there are going to be some out there, and I know this. I know that there are going to be some out there who do have health problems, and I'm sorry for that. And you do need doctors, and you do need certain medications, you do need certain procedures. But those people who are in that category are a very, very small slice of the total population. That doesn't mean those people shouldn't get the care they need, but it does mean that they are a very small slice of the pie. Now, a lot of people will say, well, that's not true. Everybody, so many people have health concerns. And okay, health concern is different than a health need. I want to take it back to when I remember, I don't know when it's been, 30 years ago, 35 years ago, something like that, when I first heard somebody make the statement that health care was going to be the major industry, the major business segment in the United States. I forget whether they said the world or not, but they definitely said in the United States. And so, get into healthcare, your healthcare careers, and everybody was pumping, going in to find some healthcare job because it was going to be the job of the future. It was going to just take over. And I remember thinking, I said, gee, why would that be? Why would healthcare be that big? I never go to the doctor. I don't know any people that go to the doctor, okay? I went a couple of times when I was on the police department, and I broke my arm, okay? Went down a flight of steps one time, cracked my elbow, okay? So I went to to the emergency room, and they looked at it and says, "Yeah, that's cracked, and we'll put a cast on it, and here's some pain pills, and leave it on, and in 6 weeks come back and we'll take the cast off." Okay, well, now a lot of people will just go along with that and say, "Oh, well, that's good. It's good that you went to the emergency room. It's good that you had a doctor to take care of that. It's good that they, said that it was broken, whatever." But think about really, what did they do? They didn't do anything, to be honest. They looked at it. They looked at the X-ray, and they told me that it was cracked, and they put a cast on it and in a sling. It's nothing that people haven't done for themselves for many, many years, for centuries, and that I couldn't have done myself, right? Several years later, I broke the elbow again, this time playing football. Same thing. I went through it, and they didn't do anything. They didn't get in there and fix it or anything. They said, "Yeah, it's broken," and put a cast, don't move it around, put a cast on it so you don't move it. And give you some pain pills for a few days, and then 6 weeks later it's going to be okay, and then recuperate. Now, I've broken, when I was young, I broke all sorts of fingers and things like that, and playing football, and like many of you all have, and all they did was look at it and said, "Yeah, it's broken, put a splint on it." Nothing that I couldn't have done, nothing that my dad didn't do. When he got tired of me going to the emergency room every time I broke something. So when you think about the times that I went to the doctor, or my brother and sister, or anybody of our age back then, when we went to the doctor, what did we go for? We hardly ever went for anything. A broken bone here and then. I guess we had to go to get checkups to go to school, but when you ask yourself why, I never remember anybody being kept out of school because of something that a doctor said. So exactly what was the reason for going to the doctor? There's plenty of people that have never gone to the doctor and they're fine, right? I mean, we look at people that back a couple of generations ago, there's people who never went to a doctor in their life and died when they were in their 90s. And now people are going to the doctor all the time, and they're dying in their 70s and their 80s. Okay, I'm going to bring this back around. So anyway, they said that healthcare was going to be the big industry of the future. And all of a sudden, we started seeing all of the instead of commercials for soap, right, on TV, and beer and cigarettes. Which, for those of you who are as old as I am, remember all the cigarette commercials and the beer commercials used to be on TV? Well, they were replaced with every medication you could think of for things that you didn't even know you had until you saw that there was a medicine for it, and then they were told you to go ask your doctor how this might help your unknown situation. And we had tons of people going to their doctor and say, "I've noticed that I've got this little something. I think maybe, I saw this commercial about this medication, and I wanted to ask you about that." And the doctor says, "Well, we could try it. We could, and see what happens." What do the doctors know about these things? You ever talk to a doctor and ask them exactly how a certain medication works? If they're honest with you, which most of them won't be, they'll kind of give you a blank look and say, "Well, we can try it and see what happens." Usually because doctors don't like to admit that they don't know anything, they'll say, "Well, I think we should give this a try, and we'll just see, give it a couple of weeks and see what happens, or a couple of months, or a couple of years, or whatever." Several years ago, I had a TIA. I'll tell you a little bit about my own personal experience, which I forget what it means. Transient ischemic attack, something like that. They say it's like a mini stroke. Okay, it was no big deal. They put me. I went in, had it checked out, and they put me in a hospital overnight. And then the doctor came in and he wrote me some scripts, for one was for high blood pressure because I was under stress, and I had a lot of stress then. Don't anymore. and then another one for cholesterol because my cholesterol was high, right? And because there for a while, I mean, cholesterol was the most important thing in the whole world, right? You couldn't have high cholesterol. I mean, your insurance rates depended on cholesterol. And if you go back and you read the studies that support this, a lot of you know what a con that's been, right? So not knowing any better, I took these pills because after all, I had young kids and I didn't want to die. And I'd never been a person to go to the doctor in the past, and I'd always just kind of fluffed it off, whatever they said. But now I had a responsibility. I had kids, I had a family, and I thought that I should do whatever it took to make sure that Daddy lived long enough, to get them out of the house and on their way. So I took these pills, trusting in the doctors. And I remember a neurologist that I went to. And I asked him exactly what had happened. And his educated opinion was this. Well, I don't know. Maybe something tried to close up and then didn't. And I thought, what? That's your doctor opinion? This guy had been, he was this big deal neurologist, and that's what he came up with? Well, I don't know. We'll see. So I took these pills for a while, and I felt like a zombie for a couple of years until Kelly started looking into them. And she says, those statin drugs are horrible for you. And so I looked into it, and darned if she wasn't right. And it makes you tired, does all sorts of things. And the effect that it had on you was exactly what I was feeling on myself. So I stopped doing that. And I went to my doctor, and I said, on the next checkup, and I said, he said, you still taking such and such? I said, no, it made me feel like crap. And so I stopped taking it. And I'm pretty ticked off because my kids have not had the father they should have had in the last couple of years because I was on that crap that you put me on. And what he said was, okay, stop taking it. Well, I already had. And when I dropped some weight, and when I started working out again, and I started to reduce my stress, my blood pressure went right back down to where it was when I was in my 20s and working out all the time. I haven't taken any of that junk since. And I've also shared this with a lot of people that I know in the medical field who, because they believed in their field and they believed in the science, got off that stuff themselves. Because so many of them, they're in high-stress jobs. They're all popping pills for this or that and the other thing, and they believe the science, and they believe each other, and they believe the doctor, and they believe all this stuff. And most of the things, that the doctors prescribe, they get most of their information from the marketing material from the pharmaceutical company. It used to be from, an attractive pharmaceutical rep who brought them barbecue for lunch and told them how great her pills were, and then they said, okay, I'll prescribe these. If you think that sounds a little like snake oil, I do too. But anyway, I've shared my experience with a lot of the people that I know in the medical field. And when they got off of them, because they said, yeah, I feel like crap too. I've taken all this stuff and I just don't feel good at all. And they got off of it and they all started feeling better. And they started dropping a few pounds and getting some exercise and reducing their stress. And guess what? Their health returned without a bunch of pills. I can't tell you how many times, because I've told you that I work in a large hospital and I spend a lot of time in the emergency room. And I can't tell you how often people come in there with ridiculous maladies. I mean, just ridiculous stuff. And things that when we were young, and probably still now, you'd say, well, go to bed, see how you feel in the morning. You remember the old take 2 aspirin and call me in the morning thing? Usually things self-resolve, as they say. But no, now people rush to the emergency room. Anything in the world. I've got to go take a look at this because there's so many commercials that tell me that horrible things could be happening to me if I don't. And I'm going to get in there and make the best use because healthcare is important. Right? So they come in. And I overhear sometimes, because I know the doctors, I hear information, right? not about particular patients, but I overhear them saying, well, you know, I don't know, it could be this or I don't know. Tell you what, go home. Let me give you, something for your pain here, and go home. And if it's still bothering you, tomorrow or the next day or something like that, why don't you call? I'll give you somebody to call, and why don't you call him? And you know what? So many of them say before they even leave the ER, they say, well, thank you, doctor. I feel so much better now anyway. You know, like I started off with this, when I heard that healthcare was going to be such a big business, I couldn't believe it. I didn't go to the doctor myself. I didn't know anybody that ever went to the doctor except older people. My grandparents occasionally. I get the sun in my eyes here, or on my face. It might be in your eyes. Uh, Occasionally, a grandparent would go in for something, but not very often. I remember one time my granddad in his 70s fell off a trellis into a driveway, sat there for a little while, rested until one of the neighbor boys came by and helped him get up. Went up and he sat in his chair, and the doctor came and they called the doctor. The doctor came over to the house, took a look at him, and said, "Doesn't look like anything's broken. After we move everything around, see how you feel in a few days. If you think you need to come in to me, do." And my granddad said, "Okay." And next day he was feeling kind of sore, and the next day less sore, and the next day less sore, and pretty soon he was just back at it. You know why? Because our bodies tend to have an amazing ability to heal themselves. I'll tell you one more story on me, and then I'll wrap this up. Several years ago, I fell. A ladder slipped. I was putting up Christmas lights. I put a jump ladder to go from one roof to the next level above, and the ladder kicked out. I had set it differently than I'd ever set it before, which was a learning experience. And I came down, and it shattered both the ulna and the radius down in here. So I've got a plate and a bunch of pins in there, a bunch of screws in there. Well, I came down. My buddy Mark was there, so he helped me down off the roof. I went in, I loaded stuff up. I went in, had it x-rayed. They said, yeah, it's broken. Call the orthopedic surgeon in the morning. They put a little splint on it or something. And I went back and I helped Mark load up the trucks and everything. I went in the next day, and the orthopedic surgeon says, well, we can, do you want to do it surgically, or do you just want to, let it heal itself? And I said, well, I don't know, what's the difference? He said, well, over time, it'll probably mostly heal. I mean, it'll come back. You might miss out on some range of motion, but, we could go in there and put a bunch of screws in it and things and make sure that you get full range of motion. And I said, well, since I have great health insurance and a lot of ESL that I can use up, and I can stay off work for 3 months or however long it was, I forget, 6 weeks or something like that. Yeah, let's go ahead and patch it up, and we'll see how it works out. But the lesson there was, it would have healed anyway. Just like my other broken bones, would have healed anyway. Now, I know that people will say, but you could have a problem. You could have problems with that. It could be infected, or it could be, I don't know, whatever. Well, that's true. It could. But just like you, I've known a lot of people in my life who had a lot of accidents, and if it didn't kill them, they pretty much survived it, and came out of it okay. Yeah. How many people do you know? I know a lot of guys whose fingers go all over different directions, right? Still functions. They still get around. They still do fine. So I think we're sold when we're thinking about what's going to happen to that. We need all of these fancy ERs, and how much people are depending on this healthcare system. I would say 90% of it is unnecessary. Now, the 10% that's necessary, okay, we should have that, and we will have that. But the 90% that's not necessary is simply a way to make people money. one more. Like I said, our first son. We didn't have health insurance at the time. We self-insured. We paid cash for whatever we needed. And when he was born, he cost us $5,000. We wrote a check for him, $5,000. The second two is when we were working for the hospital system, so we had the hospital insurance. Guess how much they cost? $25,000. Now, do you think they really cost that much more? No, that's how much the hospital billed the insurance company. That's how much the insurance company paid the hospital. That's how much the insurance company made sure that they charged their customers in insurance premiums. It's all a con. Okay. I could talk about this for hours, but I think you've had enough. All I want to say is this, that when we're thinking about, like Hallie and I talked about in the last couple of videos, when we're thinking about what kind of health care are we going to be getting if we end up outside the system, I would contend that health care is going to be pretty close to what we have now, simply by having personal relationships with healthcare providers who may not be in the system anymore themselves, but have the knowledge of what to do. Simple as that. And there was a couple of questions that people had asked that if I can think about it quickly, I'll answer. If not, I'll bring this to a close. And they're not coming to me right now. But I think we need to keep that in mind and not be buffaloed by this idea that healthcare has to be such a central focus of our lives. The true health care is living a healthy life. Eating right, getting exercise, getting outside, getting sunshine. God gave us an amazing immune system and the ability for the human body to heal itself. And yet we don't use it. We fill it with crap. We fill it with sugar and ding dongs and everything in the world, and then sit on the couch. That's another thing also. If you see the people that are using such a majority of the healthcare, they are morbidly obese. Most of them. They live a sedentary life that man was never meant to live, and essentially they've been killing themselves slowly for years, and then they expect to go in and get a pill to save them. That's what the so-called health care delivery system has become, and that's not what we should be relying on. So anyway, my thought in this is, don't be concerned about the collapse of the healthcare system, because it's really not a healthcare system. It's a treatment of symptom system, to where a good friend of mine also, who's a doctor, said we treat symptoms with drugs that we don't know what are going to be the effects of, and then we have to find a new drug to treat the symptom of the first drug. So let's take ourselves out from underneath the heel of the system that has a vested interest in keeping us sick, and take responsibility for our own health and make that our healthcare system. Okay? Well, you all have a good day. I'll talk to you later. Remember that we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow, and there's no greater preparation than to maintain a healthy lifestyle, and that'll pretty much maintain a healthy body, a healthy life, for as long as God intends to leave you here. You all have a good day. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.